The underground parking garage beneath the abandoned Houndy Grand Hotel held nothing but silence and shadows, until tonight. Amara Okafor's footsteps echoed against cold concrete as she cut through the forgotten structure, her shortcut home after another 12-hour shift. The overhead lights had died years ago. Only her phone's flashlight carved a path through the darkness. She almost missed him. A figure slumped against a concrete pillar, blood pooling beneath an expensive suit that cost more than her annual rent. His breathing came shallow, wet, labored. When her light found his face, her heart stopped completely. She knew that face. Everyone in Busan knew that face. Kang Tae-jun, the ghost dragon of the Kang Syndicate. The man whose funeral had paralyzed the city 3 weeks ago. The man whose death had been broadcast on every news channel, mourned by politicians, feared even in memory. He was supposed to be dead. His eyes opened, black, piercing, dangerous even through the haze of pain. And he looked directly at her. Sometimes death doesn't want certain souls. Sometimes fate has crueler plans. Plans written in blood, sealed in silence and witnessed only by those brave enough to stay. Please like, share and subscribe. Amar couldn't move. Her flashlight trembled in her grip, casting unstable shadows across his bloodied face. The phone felt heavy, foreign, like an object from another world. A world where dead men stayed dead. Kang Tae-jun's chest rose with effort. Each breath sounded like torn paper. His suit, black, Italian, devastated, clung to wounds she couldn't fully see. The white shirt beneath had turned crimson from collar to waist. His left hand pressed against his abdomen, fingers coated in something dark and terrible. You should run. His voice came rough, barely above a whisper, yet it carried an authority that made her spine straighten. If you're smart. She wasn't smart. She'd never been smart when it came to broken things. You're bleeding out, she heard herself say. The words felt distant, clinical, like they belonged to someone else. You need a hospital. His laugh was wet, ugly, painful to hear. Hospital means death. You're already dying. Not yet. His eyes held hers through the darkness. They were black. Not brown, not dark brown, but genuinely black. Obsidian pools that reflected her flashlight like mirrors. No warmth lived in those eyes. No mercy. No fear. Only calculated assessment. He was reading her. Even bleeding out against a concrete pillar in an abandoned garage, Kang Tae-jun was analyzing her like prey. Measuring her threat level. Determining if she'd scream, run, or call the police. Amara had seen predators before. Her father had been one. Who did this to you? She asked. Does it matter? You're supposed to be dead. Perhaps I am. His lips curved, not quite a smile. Perhaps you're seeing a ghost. She should leave. Every survival instinct screamed it. This man controlled the Kang Syndicate, an empire built on shadows, fear, and bodies that never surfaced. His organization owned half the shipping ports in South Korea. His name alone made powerful men whisper. 3 weeks ago his car had exploded outside the Lotte Hotel. They'd buried an empty casket. The city had exhaled. I'm not seeing a ghost, Amara said quietly. Ghosts don't bleed. Something flickered in his expression. Curiosity maybe. Or the beginning of something far more dangerous. Who are you? He asked. Nobody. Nobody doesn't exist. Neither do you apparently. Another wet laugh, followed by a grimace of pain. His grip on his abdomen tightened. Fresh blood seeped between his fingers. Too much blood. He was losing time, losing strength, losing the iron control that defined him. If I die here, he said slowly, you'll be the last face I see. That's not my problem. It will be. His eyes never left hers. They'll find my body. They'll check cameras. They'll find you. And they'll assume you know something. She went cold. Who's they? Everyone who wants me dead. His voice dropped. Which is everyone who knows I'm alive. Amara's mind raced. She thought of her tiny apartment in Nampodong. Her grandmother in the nursing home dependent on her payments. Her job at the harbor restaurant the only thing keeping them both alive. She thought of everything she had to lose, which wasn't much but it was hers. And she thought of her father's body on the kitchen floor in Lagos, bleeding out from wounds no one could fix, while her mother screamed and the neighbors pretended not to hear. She'd been 15. She'd watched him die because no one helped. I know someone, she said before she could stop herself. A doctor. He doesn't ask questions. Taejun studied her. Why would you help me? I'm not helping you. She pulled her phone from her pocket, scrolling through contacts with bloodless fingers. I'm helping myself. You die here, I become a problem. You live somewhere else, I become invisible again. Logical. Survival usually is. She found the number. Dr. Chin, a former trauma surgeon who'd lost his license over an illegal transplant years ago. He worked out of a storage unit near Jigaoki Market now. He owed her a favor from 6 months ago, when she'd brought him antibiotics she couldn't afford to buy and he couldn't afford to refuse. Can you walk? She asked. I can do whatever I need to do. He almost believed him. Almost. Moving him nearly killed them both. Taejun was taller than she'd realized. Over 6 feet of lean muscle and damaged tissue wrapped in blood-soaked silk. His arm draped across her shoulders like a threat. His weight pressed against her side with every agonizing step. They made it to her car, a 15-year-old Hyundai that coughed more than it ran, through sheer stubbornness. She half-carried, half-dragged him into the back seat. He didn't make a sound. Not when she bent his wounded torso. Not when she accidentally jarred whatever horror lurked beneath his pressed hand. Not even when she slammed the door too hard against his leg. Silence. Complete, terrifying silence. She drove through empty streets, watching the rearview mirror more than the road. Busan at 3 a.m. was a ghost town, neon signs flickering over closed restaurants, occasional taxicabs hunting for fares, shadows that might be people or might be something worse. You're Nigerian. His voice startled her. What? Your accent. Lagos if I had to guess. Southern. She gripped the steering wheel tighter. You're dying and you're analyzing my accent? Habit. Terrible habit. Useful one. Pause. You came to Korea when? None of your business. You're helping a dead man escape his grave. Everything is my business now. She caught his eyes in the rearview mirror. Even bleeding, even fading, those black depths missed nothing. He'd catalogued her face, her voice, her car, her body language. He probably already knew more about her than her coworkers did. 7 years, she said finally. I came 7 years ago. Why? Does it matter? Everything matters. She didn't answer. Dr. Chen's storage unit loomed ahead, a rusted metal door in a row of identical rusted metal doors. She parked crooked, didn't care. Getting Taejun out of the car took another small eternity, but she managed it, and Dr. Chen was already waiting with the door cracked open. He took one look at the man leaning on her shoulder and went pale. Do you know who that is? Does it matter? It matters very much. Can you save him? Chen's eyes darted between them. His hand trembled on the door frame. Amara could see calculations running behind his glasses. Risk versus reward, survival versus suicide. Please, she said. She'd never begged for anything in her life. But something in her voice must have broken through because Chin stepped aside and let them in. The storage unit smelled like antiseptic and fear. Chin had converted it into a makeshift operating room, stainless steel table hanging surgical lights, equipment that looked stolen from a proper hospital. Amara helped lower Taejun onto the table, then stepped back while Chin cut away his ruined shirt. She shouldn't have looked. He looked anyway. The wounds were extensive. 2 gunshots, one to the left side, one grazing his ribs. A knife wound across his shoulder blade. Bruises that spoke of impact, of falling, of being struck repeatedly before escaping. A dragon. It covered the entire left side of his torso, scales rippling across muscle and bone in black and crimson ink. The beast's head crested his collarbone, jaws open, eyes burning. Its body wound around his ribs, disappeared beneath his waistband, presumably continued down his hip or thigh. The artwork was beautiful. And absolutely terrifying. Kong's syndicate, Chin muttered, more to himself than to her. The dragon mark. Only the inner circle carries it. Only the... He stopped. Swallowed. Only the leader. Mar felt cold. Just save him. You don't understand what you've done. I understand perfectly. She met his eyes. Save him or don't. But decide quickly. Chin stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his patient and began to work. 3 hours. 3 hours of watching Chen's hands move with surprising steadiness, extracting bullets, stitching flesh, pumping fluids into veins that had lost too much. Taejun remained unconscious through most of it, a small mercy. His face, relaxed in artificial sleep, looked almost peaceful. Almost human. Amara sat in the corner on a plastic crate, exhaustion pulling at her bones. She should leave. She'd done her part. Whatever happened next was between the dead man and his doctor. But she couldn't move. Some invisible force held her to that crate, made her watch the rise and fall of his chest, made her study the sharp angles of his face in the surgical light. He was beautiful in a cold way, the kind of beauty that belonged to sculptures, not people. High cheekbones, strong jaw, lips that probably never smiled. What would it take to make him smile? She killed the thought immediately. He'll live. Chen's voice broke through her spiraling mind. What? He'll live. Chen wiped bloody hands on a stained towel. The bullets missed anything vital. The blood loss was significant but not fatal. He's strong, stronger than anyone I've ever operated on. His body fought the damage like it was insulted by it. Amara exhaled. Tao what? Now he needs somewhere to recover. Somewhere hidden. Chin gave her a pointed look. Somewhere that isn't my storage unit. I can't. You already did. He gestured at the unconscious man on his table. You brought him here. You saved his life. You're already involved. The only question now is how deep you're willing to go. She thought of her grandmother. Her job. Her tiny apartment with the leaking ceiling and the mattress on the floor. I don't have space. Make space. I don't have money for medical supplies. I'll give you what he needs. Payment can wait. Why are you helping him? Chen's expression flickered, something dark and old passing through his eyes. Because 20 years ago his father helped me when no one else would. And debts like that don't expire. Amara stared at the man on the table. His chest rose and fell in steady rhythm now. The dragon tattoo seemed to breathe with him, scales catching the light with each expansion of his ribs. Even unconscious, even vulnerable, he radiated something that made her skin prickle. Danger. Power. The promise of destruction wrapped in mortal flesh. Fine, she said. I'll take him. She didn't know she was sealing her fate. Getting him up 4 flights of stairs nearly ended them both. Amara lived in a building that had been modern once, maybe during the Japanese occupation. Now it was just old, tired, and too stubborn to collapse. The elevator hadn't worked in years. The hallways smelled like mildew and someone's perpetual fish stew. Taejun drifted in and out of consciousness during the climb. At one point his arm tightened around her shoulders. Jasmine, he murmured against her hair. You smell like jasmine. She ignored the warmth that spread through her chest. That's the floor cleaner. No. His voice was distant, drugged, floating somewhere between sleep and waking. It's you. He got him inside. Her apartment was exactly what she could afford. One room that served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen. A bathroom the size of a closet. A window that faced another building's wall. She tried to make it feel like home with plants that refused to die and photographs of Legos that made her homesick. The mattress on the floor was the only place to put him. She lowered him down carefully, arranging his long body across sheets that suddenly seemed pathetically cheap. His head hit her pillow. His hand fell open beside him, revealing knuckles scarred from old violence. She covered him with her only blanket and stepped back. Now what? He didn't know. She only knew that sleep wasn't coming tonight. He woke at dawn. Amara had been dozing in the corner, back against the wall, legs pulled to her chest. The small sound of movement snapped her awake instantly, a survival reflex she'd never outgrown. Taejun was watching her. Those black eyes, clear now, sharp and fully conscious, tracked her across the small room. He didn't speak, didn't move. Just watched with an intensity that made her feel like a butterfly pinned beneath glass. You should be dead, she said quietly. The doctor said the blood loss alone. I don't die easily. Clearly. Silence stretched between them. He was taking inventory again, she could see it. His gaze moved methodically across her space. The cracked ceiling. The second-hand furniture. The photographs of a family he couldn't possibly understand. The pile of bills on the tiny kitchen counter. You're poor, he observed. No judgment in his voice. Just fact. I prefer economically challenged. His lips twitched. Not a smile. Close though. Why did you help me? I already told you. You told me a convenient lie. He shifted, grimacing at the pain it cost him. People don't risk their lives for convenience. What's the real reason? Amara stared at him. She could lie again. She should lie again. But those eyes saw too much, stripped too many layers away. Lying to him felt pointless. I watched my father die, she said. When I was 15. He was stabbed during a robbery gone wrong. I sat with him for 23 minutes watching him bleed out on our kitchen floor. No one helped. The neighbors heard everything. They didn't come. The ambulance took too long. He died looking at me, asking me why no one would help him. Taejun's expression didn't change. But something in his eyes shifted. So you help everyone? No. She met his gaze. I help people who remind me that humans shouldn't die alone in the dark. It has nothing to do with who they are or what they've done. Even killers? Everyone dies the same way. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're unusual. I'm tired. There's a difference. There isn't. She didn't argue. The first day set the pattern. Taejun couldn't leave. Couldn't contact anyone. Couldn't let anyone know he was alive. Those were his rules, stated bluntly while she changed his bandages with hands that trembled only slightly. The people who tried to kill me have eyes everywhere, he explained. Police. Hospitals. My own organization. Until I know who ordered the hit, I trust no one. You trust me. I don't have a choice. Everyone has choices. His hand caught her wrist. Sudden, tight, burning. She froze, blood thundering in her ears. His grip didn't hurt, but it communicated something primal. I could hurt you. I'm choosing not to. I trust you, he said slowly, because you have nothing to gain from helping me. You don't want my money. You don't want my power. You don't want my protection. You helped me because of something that happened to someone else 12 years ago in a country I've never seen. His thumb traced her pulse point. That makes you either the most foolish woman I've ever met, or the most genuine. She pulled her wrist free. I'm neither. You're both. She didn't respond. The bandages got changed. They didn't speak again until evening. Amara worked double shifts at the restaurant. Taejun healed with terrifying speed. By the second day he was sitting up on his own. By the third he was standing. By the fifth he was doing slow exercises in the corner of her tiny apartment, retraining muscles that had been dormant too long. She watched him sometimes when she thought he wasn't looking. He was always looking. Your job, he said one evening as she came home smelling like fish and exhaustion. It's at the harbor. How do you know that? You smell like salt water and grilled mackerel. Your shoes have traces of fish scale. Your hands show cuts consistent with oyster shelling. He paused. Also, your uniform has the restaurant name embroidered on it. She looked down. Nampo Seafood House. You're observant. Survival. She dropped her bag on the floor and collapsed onto the small chair that served as her only furniture besides the mattress. He'd taken her bed. There was nowhere else to put him, which meant she'd been sleeping on the floor for 5 nights. She was exhausted beyond words. You should sleep, he said. Where? You're on my bed. I'm aware. His eyes tracked her face with that unsettling focus. She'd gotten used to it, sort of. The way he watched her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. The way his attention followed her movements even when he pretended to be resting. You haven't complained once, he observed. Would it change anything? No. Then why complain? That almost smile again. The twitch of lips that never quite committed. Sleep on the bed, he said. I'll take the floor. You're injured. I'm better. Dr. Chin said 2 weeks minimum. Dr. Chin underestimates me. Before she could argue, he was moving, slow, deliberate, swinging his legs over the edge of the mattress. He saw the grimace he tried to hide. The way his hand pressed against his bandaged side. The sweat that broke across his forehead from even this small exertion. Stop, she said. He stopped. What? Stop being proud. Stop pretending you're fine. You were shot twice and stabbed once less than a week ago. Your body doesn't care about your reputation. She crossed her arms. Stay on the bed. I'll survive the floor. His jaw tightened. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's common sense. She met his eyes. You want to find out who tried to kill you? You want revenge or justice or whatever it is men like you want. Then heal properly. Because if you push too hard and tear something open, I'm not carrying you down 4 flights of stairs again. Silence. Something shifted in his expression. Something she couldn't name. You're not afraid of me, he said quietly. Why should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. No. His voice dropped. You're not. He lay back down. He took the floor. But his eyes never left her, and when she finally slept, she dreamed of dragons and fire and the cold weight of a gaze that saw everything. By the second week she knew his habits. He woke before dawn, always. He did his exercises in silence, moving through forms that looked martial and graceful despite his injuries. He ate whatever she brought him without complaint, though she suspected her cheap convenience store food was a far cry from what he was used to. He watched her constantly. Not in a threatening way. Or at least not only in a threatening way. It was more like study. Like she was a text written in a language he was still learning to read. Tell me about Lagos, he said one night. She was chopping vegetables for a stew she couldn't really afford. His question stopped her knife mid-motion. Why? Because you look at those photographs every night before you sleep. Because you speak Korean with perfect grammar but Nigerian proverbs slip out when you're tired. Because you're here in a country that isn't home, living a life that clearly isn't what you wanted. He paused. I'm curious. Curiosity killed the cat. I'm not a cat. No. She resumed chopping. You're something much more dangerous. And yet you're still here. She didn't have an answer for that. So she told him about Lagos instead. About the street markets where her mother sold fabrics that shimmered like captured sunlight. About her father's workshop, filled with the smell of sawdust and varnish and the gospel music he played too loud. About her grandmother's stories of ancestors who survived things no one should survive. About the robbery. About the blood. About her mother's breakdown afterward and the grandmother who stepped in to raise her. And the dream of escape that brought her across oceans to a country where she would always be foreign. Taejun listened without interruption. When she finished, the stew was burning and tears she hadn't noticed were sliding down her cheeks. You blame yourself, he said. I was there. I should have done something. You were 15. I was there. He was quiet for a moment. Then, my mother died when I was 12. Amara looked up. I watched my father order her death, he continued, voice flat, empty of emotion. She tried to leave him. Take me and my sister away from the syndicate, give us a normal life. He found out. He made me watch what happened to people who betrayed the family. The words hung in the air like smoke. That's... Don't. His eyes found hers. Don't say you're sorry. Don't say it wasn't my fault. I know what it was. I know what I saw. I know what I became afterward. He paused. I'm telling you because you think you're the only one carrying ghosts. You're not. She stared at him. For the first time she saw something beneath the ice. Something wounded. Something human. Things changed after that night. Not dramatically. Not obviously. But the air between them felt different. Charged with something unspoken, weighted with shared secrets that bound them together despite every reason to stay apart. She found herself lingering before work, talking to him about nothing important. He found himself waiting for her return, something unfamiliar stirring in his chest when her key finally turned in the lock. They didn't touch. They didn't need to. The tension was enough. Someone's watching the building. His voice reached her from the window, a dangerous place he shouldn't be standing. She dropped her bag and crossed the room in 3 steps, pulling him back into the shadows. What? Silver sedan. Parked across the street. Been there for 2 hours. How do you know? Because I've been watching. Her heart hammered. Who are they? I don't know yet. His eyes moved across her face. But someone talked. Someone knows I'm alive. Chin. Possibly. Or the hospital might have security footage of a woman matching your description entering an underground parking garage near a pool of my blood. His jaw tightened. Either way, the clock is running now. Amara's mind raced. We need to move you. Where? I don't know. Somewhere. Running won't help. They'll find me eventually. He turned back to the window just enough to keep the sedan in view. The only solution is to find them first. You can barely walk without pain. Pain is temporary. Death isn't. He looked at her then, really looked with something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Something almost soft. You're worried about me. I'm worried about me. If they find you here, they find me. Is that the only reason? She couldn't answer. Because the truth was complicated. The truth was that somewhere in the past 2 weeks he had stopped being a dangerous obligation and started being something else entirely. Something that made her heart race when he entered a room. Something that made her skin prickle when his eyes found hers. She was in danger. Not from the people in the sedan. From him. From what he was making her feel. We need a plan, she said instead. His hand caught her chin, gentle, impossibly gentle, tilting her face toward his. We need trust, he corrected quietly. And I'm beginning to think I trust you more than I've trusted anyone in a very long time. She couldn't breathe. His thumb traced her jawline, one slow stroke, burning a path across her skin. Then he released her and stepped back. Tonight, he said, all business again. I make contact with the one person I know didn't betray me. My sister. Kang Minji arrived at midnight. She came alone as Taejun had instructed, slipping through the back entrance of the building like a shadow, climbing 4 flights of stairs without making a sound. When Amara opened the door, she found herself face to face with the most beautiful woman she'd ever seen. Minji was tall, elegant, dressed in black from head to toe. Her features mirrored her brother's, the same sharp cheekbones, the same piercing eyes, but where his beauty was cold, hers was fierce. A warrior princess. A blade in silk. You're the waitress, Minji said. Not a question. I'm Amara. I know who you are. Minji's eyes swept the apartment, taking in the poverty with obvious distaste. I know everything about you. Your father's death. Your mother's institutionalization. Your grandmother in the nursing home. She paused. Your medical debt. Amara's blood ran cold. How? I have resources. Minji moved past her into the apartment. My brother trusts you. I don't. Taejun emerged from the shadows behind the door. Minji stopped. For the first time her composure cracked. Something raw and desperate flickered across her face. Love, relief, fury, all tangled together. Appa. Minji. She crossed the room in 3 strides and threw her arms around him. He caught her, grimacing at the pressure against his wounds but holding her anyway. Brother and sister reunited. Alive against all odds. Amara felt like an intruder. She turned toward the kitchen, giving them privacy. No. Taejun's voice stopped her. Stay. She stayed. The conversation that followed changed everything. Minji had spent 3 weeks investigating. Playing the grieving sister. Gathering information while the syndicate tore itself apart with succession disputes. She knew who had ordered the hit. Park Jin-soo, she said, voice dripping with contempt. Father's right hand. He convinced the council you were too soft. Too modern. Too likely to take the syndicate legitimate and destroy their profit margins. Taejun's expression didn't change. But his knuckles went white. How many supported him? 4 of the 7 council seats. The others abstained or voted against. Minji's eyes hardened. Kwon Sung-ho is still loyal. So is Director Nam. The rest. She shook her head. The rest need to be dealt with. You can't. Not yet. You're not strong enough and they're expecting you to come back from the dead eventually. They have people watching every hospital, every safe house, every contact we've ever used. They haven't found me here. They will. Minji's gaze flickered to Amara. One of Jin-soo's men has been asking questions near the parking garage. Following up on reports of a woman seen helping someone injured that night. It's only a matter of time before they connect the dots. Amara's stomach dropped. I should disappear, she said quietly. Leave the city. Let you handle. No. Taejun's voice cut through her suggestion like a blade. You stay. I'm a liability. You're under my protection. His eyes found hers with devastating intensity. Anyone who touches you dies. That's not a threat. It's a statement of fact. The room went silent. Minji looked between them with raised eyebrows. Well, she murmured. This is interesting. Amara didn't ask what she meant. She was afraid she already knew. 3 days after Minji's visit, they moved. Not far, just 2 blocks away to a commercial building Minji owned through a shell company. The fourth floor had been converted into a luxury apartment, hidden behind the facade of an import business. Amara found herself in a space larger than any she'd ever inhabited. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Modern furniture. A kitchen with appliances she didn't know how to use. A bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown in. And one bed. The second bedroom is being converted into an operations center, Taejun explained, watching her take in the space. For now we share. We're not sharing a bed. The couch converts. She looked at him. He looked back. That tension again, thick, electric, suffocating. Why am I here? She asked finally. The real reason. You have resources now. Money. Your sister. You don't need me anymore. Need is relative. That's not an answer. He crossed the room slowly, favoring his healing side but moving with more strength than before. He stopped close enough that she could feel his body heat, smell the clean scent of soap and something underneath. Something dark and male. You saw me at my weakest, he said quietly. You helped me when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. You kept my secrets. You treated me like a man, not a monster. His eyes held hers. Those things have value. That's still not an answer. Maybe I don't have one. His hand rose, almost touching her face before dropping away. Maybe I just know that when you walk into a room something in my chest moves. Maybe I know that for the first time in 20 years I want to protect something instead of destroy it. Amara's heart stopped. That's dangerous. Everything about me is dangerous. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But I've never wanted anything the way I want to keep you safe. And I don't know what to do with that. He should step back. She should remind him that she was a waitress from Lagos, that she had no place in his world of blood and power, that whatever he was feeling was just gratitude distorted by isolation. He didn't. She stayed exactly where she was, drowning in black eyes that saw too much and promised too little, feeling the pull of gravity toward a man who could destroy her without trying. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Yes. I should leave. Yes. But I'm not going to. No. His thumb finally touched her cheek, one featherlight stroke that sent electricity down her spine. You're not. Days blurred into weeks. Taejun healed. Planned. Made calls on encrypted phones. Met with Kwon Sung-ho in the dead of night, building alliances, preparing for war. Amara watched it all from the periphery. She should have been terrified. Instead she was fascinated. He moved through this world like he'd been born for it, commanding without raising his voice, threatening without making threats, manipulating chess pieces she couldn't even see. This was his element. Violence refined into strategy. Brutality disguised as patience. And yet, when he looked at her, something shifted. The ice melted just a fraction. The predator paused. The man beneath emerged, wounded, hungry, desperately alone. She saw him watch her when he thought she wasn't looking. Saw the way his jaw tightened when she laughed at something on her phone. Saw how his hands clenched when she mentioned the restaurant manager who'd been concerned about her absence. Jealousy. Possessiveness. Obsession growing in real time. The restaurant, he said one evening. You're not going back. They were eating dinner, actual dinner prepared by someone Minji had sent. Amara looked up from her rice, chopsticks frozen mid-bite. Excuse me. It's not safe. Jinsu's people are still searching. A waitress who disappeared the same night I died returning to work. He shook his head. Too obvious. I need the money. I'll provide. I don't want your money. It's not about want. It's about survival. She set down her chopsticks with more force than necessary. I've survived 25 years without your money. I'll survive however many more I have left. Not if Jinsu finds you first. Then what's your solution? I hide in this gilded cage forever while you wage war? Become your kept woman? Your prisoner. He stood, anger flashing hot. I didn't save your life to lose mine. He moved faster than should have been possible. One moment he was across the table. The next he was there, right there, his body crowding hers against the kitchen counter, his hands braced on either side of her, his face inches away. You think you're a prisoner? His voice was low, dangerous, thick with something that made her blood run hot. You think I would cage you? You who walked into darkness to save a stranger. You who looked at a monster and saw a man. She couldn't breathe. His proximity was overwhelming. Heat and muscle and barely restrained violence. This close she could see flecks of gold in his black eyes. Could see the scar that cut through his left eyebrow. Could see the vein pulsing in his temple. If I wanted to keep you, he continued, voice dropping further, I wouldn't need a cage. I would make you want to stay. I would become so essential to your existence that leaving would feel like dying. That's how I keep things, Amara. Not through locks. Through need. Her mouth went dry. Is that what you're doing? She whispered. Making me need you? I don't know. His forehead dropped to hers. Intimate, devastating, utterly unexpected. All I know is that I need you. And it's driving me insane. She should have pushed him away. Every logical part of her brain screamed it. This man was a syndicate boss. A killer. A manipulator. He had enemies who would burn the world to reach him, and she was standing directly in the line of fire. But her hands weren't listening to logic. They were reaching up, cupping his face, feeling the sharp cut of his jaw beneath her palms. His eyes fluttered closed, just for a moment, and in that instant she saw exhaustion. Loneliness. A desperate hunger for something real. We can't, she said softly. I know. This ends badly. For both of us. Probably. I'm not some fantasy. I'm a waitress with debt and trauma and a grandmother who doesn't know I exist most days. I know who you are. His eyes opened, pinning her in place. I've memorized every scar on your hands. I've tracked every emotion that crosses your face. I know the exact shade your eyes turn when you're angry versus when you're pretending not to be hurt. I know you hum Nigerian gospel songs when you think no one's listening. I know you sleep curled in a ball like you're protecting yourself from something. Her heart cracked. Taejun. I know you're real, he finished. That's exactly why I can't let you go. His lips brushed hers. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just the promise of one. And then the window exploded. Glass rained across the apartment. Taejun moved on instinct, shoving her to the floor, covering her body with his hand already reaching for the gun she hadn't known he kept holstered at his ankle. Gunfire erupted from somewhere below. Shouts in Korean. The door buckled under impact. Stay down, he ordered, rising into a crouch. The gun in his hand looked like an extension of his arm. Natural, terrifying. No matter what happens, stay down. What's? They found us. The door splintered. Men poured through, 5, 6, she lost count. All in black. All armed. All focused on the man standing between them and their target. Taejun fired twice. 2 bodies dropped. He moved like smoke, like shadow, like violence given human form. Even injured, even caught off guard, he was devastating. Precise. Each movement calculated to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. But there were too many. A fist caught him across the face. A kick swept his legs. He went down hard and they were on him. Punching, kicking, the gun skittering across the floor to land 3 feet from Amara's trembling hand. He didn't think. She grabbed it. She fired. The room went silent. The man standing over Taejun crumpled. Bullet hole in his shoulder. Not lethal but incapacitating. The others turned, guns swinging toward the woman on the floor who shouldn't have known how to shoot. But Amara's father had been a carpenter, yes. He'd also been other things. Things she didn't talk about. Put it down, one of them commanded in English. He didn't. Put it down. Still no. Taejun rolled, taking advantage of their distraction. His elbow shattered a nose. His fist crushed a windpipe. In the chaos, he grabbed a knife from someone's belt and opened 2 throats before they could react. The survivors ran. Sirens wailed in the distance. And Amara sat frozen on the floor, hands still wrapped around the gun, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Taejun reached her in 2 strides. His hands were bloody. His face was bloody. But his voice was impossibly gentle. It's over. Look at me. More. Look at me. She looked. His eyes held hers like anchors, keeping her from drowning. You saved me, he said quietly. Again. I killed someone. No. You wounded someone. I killed him. He carefully pried the gun from her grip. That blood is mine, not yours. You survived. His bloody hand cupped her face, leaving smears she should have been horrified by but wasn't. You did what you needed to do. That's all anyone can ask. He broke. Tears came, hot, ugly, unstoppable, And he caught them all, pulling her against his chest even as police sirens grew louder. He held her like she was precious. Like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. And she held him back. Minji arrived before the police did. She had resources, influence, the ability to make witnesses forget what they'd seen and evidence disappear before anyone could question it. Within an hour, the apartment was clean, the bodies were gone, and Amara was being treated by a private doctor who asked no questions. She's in shock, the doctor said quietly. Physical injuries are minor but psychological. I'll handle it, Taejun cut him off. The doctor left. Amara sat on the edge of a new bed in a new safe house, wrapped in a blanket she didn't remember being given. Everything felt muted, distant, like she was watching her life through frosted glass. Taejun sat beside her, silent, waiting. I used to shoot with my father, she heard herself say. On weekends. There was a range outside Lagos. Targets, not people. He said everyone should know how to protect themselves. He laughed, hollow broken. I was a better shot than him by the time I was 14. That skill saved both our lives tonight. That skill made me a killer. No. His hand covered hers. Jinsu made you a survivor. There's a difference. She looked at their joined hands, his scarred and bloody, hers trembling and small. I can't go back to my life, can I? No. Even if you win. Even if you destroy Jinsu. I can't. Her voice cracked. I can't be a waitress again. Can't pretend none of this happened. No. Then what happens to me? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, you stay. Here. With me. She looked up. His face was inches away, bruised, cut, devastatingly beautiful in the low light. In what capacity? She asked carefully. In whatever capacity you want. His thumb traced her knuckles. But preferably all of them. Her heart skipped. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. His eyes held hers with fierce intensity. I know what I am. I know what I've done. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But when I think about tomorrow, about next week, next month, next year, I can't imagine any version that doesn't include you. She couldn't breathe. That's terrifying. I know. His voice dropped. I've never wanted anything I couldn't take by force. Never needed anything I couldn't buy or steal or destroy into submission. But you. He shook his head. You're different. And it terrifies me more than Jinsu's entire army. Amara stared at him. This man had killed people tonight. Would kill more before this war was over. Had probably killed hundreds over his lifetime. Ordered deaths she couldn't imagine. Destroyed families and built empires on bone. And he was looking at her like she held his heart in her hands. I need time, she said finally. Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment maybe or resignation. Take all you need. But. He waited. But don't let me leave. His expression shifted. What? I'm asking you to keep me here. Not as a prisoner. As. She searched for words. As someone who doesn't trust herself right now. Who might run because running is easier than feeling. Keep me here until I'm ready to choose. His hand tightened on hers. You're asking me to cage you. I'm asking you to anchor me. He stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. I'll be your anchor. The next 3 weeks were a blur of strategy and violence. Taejun moved against Jinsu's faction with surgical precision. Safe houses burned. Accounts froze. Loyal soldiers who'd been hiding emerged from shadows, declaring allegiance to the rightful heir. The Kong syndicate was at war with itself. And Amara watched from the eye of the storm. She learned things she shouldn't know. Saw documents she shouldn't see. Heard conversations that would have gotten her killed 6 months ago. But Taejun kept her close. Always close. She understood now why people feared him. He was brilliant. Frighteningly, devastatingly brilliant. His mind saw patterns where others saw chaos. His strategies unfolded like chess games, each move setting up the next, each sacrifice calculated for maximum gain. And he was utterly ruthless. She watched him order a man's death over dinner, voice never wavering. Watched him review execution footage with the same expression he wore while reading the news. Watched the dragon tattoo ripple across his chest as he moved through combat forms, preparing his body for battles she prayed he wouldn't need to fight. He was a monster. She was falling for him anyway. You're staring. His voice cut through her thoughts. She looked up from the book she'd been pretending to read and found him watching her from across the room. Shirtless. Sweating. The dragon tattoo glistening in the low light. I wasn't staring. You were. Fine. I was. She set down the book. Is that a crime now? Depends on what you were thinking. Heat flooded her cheeks. Nothing. Liar. He crossed the room slowly, predatory, each step deliberate. You were thinking about the tattoo. You always stare at it when I train. She couldn't deny it. The dragon fascinated her. Its detail, its meaning, the way it seemed to move with him like a living thing. She wanted to touch it. Wanted to trace every scale with her fingertips. She wanted things she shouldn't want. It's beautiful, she admitted quietly. And terrifying. Like me. Yes. He stopped in front of her, close enough to touch, too close to think. You could touch it, he said, voice dropping to that dangerous register. If you wanted. Her heart hammered. That's not a good idea. Probably not. His hand reached out, taking hers. Lifted it. Pressed her palm flat against his chest. Over his heart. Over the dragon's head. Feel that? He asked quietly. He felt everything. The heat of his skin. The steady thunder of his heartbeat. The slight ridges where the tattoo's ink had scarred. That heart stopped twice during surgery, he continued. Chin had to bring me back both times. Do you know what I saw? What I thought about while I was technically dead? She couldn't speak. He said. I thought about the woman who smelled like jasmine in an underground garage. The woman who should have run and didn't. The woman whose face I couldn't stop seeing even in death. His other hand tilted her chin up. I came back for you, Amara. I didn't even know your name and I came back for you. That's insane. I know. His thumb traced her lower lip. But I've never claimed to be sane. And then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was hunger and desperation and 3 weeks of tension snapping like a wire pulled too tight. His lips claimed hers with a ferocity that should have frightened her, hands tangling in her hair, body pressing her back against the chair she'd been sitting in. She met him stroke for stroke. Her hands found his chest, the tattoo, the scars, the burning heat of his skin. Her fingers traced the dragon's scales while his tongue invaded her mouth, tasting her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. Amara. Don't stop. He didn't. He lifted her instead, effortlessly, impossibly, despite wounds that should have made such movement agony. Carried her to the bedroom. Laid her down on silk sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to be. Hovered over her with black eyes that had turned to coal. Tell me to stop, he said roughly. Tell me now and I will. She reached up and pulled him down. She woke tangled in sheets and heat. His arm was draped across her waist, heavy and possessive even in sleep. Morning light filtered through curtains she didn't remember closing, casting golden stripes across his dragon tattoo. She studied him in the stillness. Sleep. He looked younger. The lines of tension in his face had smoothed. His breathing was deep and even. She could count his lashes if she wanted, long and dark and completely unfair. She wanted to trace his jaw. So she did. His eyes opened immediately, predator alert, ready for danger. Then they focused on her and something in them softened. You stayed, he said, voice rough with sleep. You told me not to leave. I meant in the safe house. Not. He gestured vaguely at their tangled limbs. I know what you meant. And yet. He pulled her closer, tucking her against his chest. She felt the rumble of his voice through his ribs when he spoke again. I should tell you this changes nothing. Does it? No. His arms tightened. It changes everything. The days after were strange and sweet. They existed in a bubble, stolen moments between strategy sessions and encrypted calls. He would disappear for hours, handling syndicate business, and return with blood on his cuffs and exhaustion in his eyes. She would be waiting and the tension would drain from his shoulders like water. She became his peace. He became her chaos. It should have terrified her. Strangely it didn't. Jin-soo is getting desperate, Minji reported during a late-night meeting. His allies are abandoning him. 2 council members have already switched sides. Another is negotiating terms. And the others? Dead or in hiding. Taejun nodded slowly. His hand rested on Amara's knee beneath the table, grounding, possessive, hidden from everyone but them. What about the warehouse operation? Ready to move. We can take it tonight if you give the order. Do it. His voice was cold, clinical. The syndicate boss, not the man who'd held her last night. But leave Jinsu alive. I want to handle him personally. Minji's eyes flickered to Amara, then back to her brother. Understood. The meeting ended. Amara found herself alone with a man who was already disappearing into his role, his warmth cooling into the ice she'd first encountered. You're going tonight, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. And you weren't going to tell me. I was going to tell you after. He stood, pulling on a jacket that hid the holster she knew he was wearing. Less time for worry. Or goodbye. He stopped. Turned. Something raw crossed his face. Quick, painful, gone. There's no goodbye, he said quietly. There's only, see you later. And if later doesn't come? He crossed the room in 3 strides. His hands cupped her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything he was about to do. Later always comes, he said. I survived death once. I'll survive it again. You can't promise that. No. His forehead touched hers. But I can promise that whatever happens tonight you'll be protected. Minji has instructions. Safe passage arranged. Money, documents, a new identity if you need one. Her heart cracked. You think I want to run? I think I want you safe. Whatever that requires. What if staying with you is what I want? His eyes closed. Then stay. But know what that means. Know that my enemies become your enemies. That my blood becomes your stain. That loving me, if that's what this is, means loving a man who will never be able to give you normal. I've never been normal. Amara. I'm not asking for normal. She gripped his wrists, keeping his hands on her face. I'm asking for you. The real you. The monster and the man. All of it. He was silent for a long moment. Then he kissed her, deep, consuming, devastating. When he pulled away, his eyes were wet. I'll see you later, he said. And then he was gone. The warehouse burned. Amara watched it from the safe house window 20 miles away, a column of smoke rising against the night sky like a signal. Like a warning. Like an ending. Her phone rang. Minji's number. She answered with fingers that shook. Is he? There was an ambush. Minji's voice was careful. Controlled. Jinsu had more men than we thought. Taejun went in first like always. Like the hero he refuses to admit he is. Minji. There was an explosion. The building collapsed. We're still searching the rubble, but... Pause. A long, terrible pause. We haven't found him yet. The phone slipped from Amara's numb fingers. The world tilted. And somewhere in the flames, surrounded by smoke and death and the wreckage of his empire, Kang Taejun opened his eyes, pinned beneath concrete, bleeding from wounds that might be fatal, staring at the wedding ring he'd been carrying in his pocket for 3 days. The ring he'd bought for her. The ring she might never see. Amara, he whispered to no one. And then darkness took him. 12 hours. 12 hours of watching rescue crews tear through rubble while Amara stood frozen at the barricade, wrapped in a coat she didn't remember putting on, refusing to move despite Minji's pleas. Dawn came gray and cold. The fire had died to embers. And still no body. No Taejun. He's alive, Amara said for the 100th time. Her voice was hoarse, broken from crying. He has to be alive. Minji's hand tightened on her shoulder. Amara. He came back from death once. He told me. His heart stopped twice and he came back because, she choked on the words. He came back for me. He said so. He can't die now. Not when. We found something. One of the rescue workers approached, face grim. He held out his gloved hand. A ring. A diamond ring, edges blackened with soot. This was in the west sector. Near where we believe he hesitated. Near the epicenter of the explosion. Amara took it with numb fingers. The diamond caught the gray morning light, sparkling despite the destruction. It was elegant, expensive, exactly what Taejun would choose. Beauty wrapped in danger, value disguised as simplicity. He was going to propose, she whispered. Minji went still. What? This is an engagement ring. Amara turned it over in her palm, feeling its weight like a physical wound. He was going to ask me to marry him. How do you know? Because he told me everything changes. Because he held me like he was afraid to let go. Because, her voice cracked. Because this is what he does. Plans everything. Prepares for every outcome. He had this ring because he'd already decided. He just hadn't found the right moment. Minji's composure finally shattered. She pulled Amara into her arms, holding her as sobs racked both their bodies. Two women who'd been circling each other with suspicion, finally united by grief. He's not dead, Amara said against Minji's shoulder. I would know. I would feel it. Maybe you're right. I am right. Minji didn't argue. She just held on tighter. They found blood. Too much blood. A trail leading from the rubble to a drainage tunnel that ran beneath the warehouse district. The rescue crews hadn't checked it, too focused on the main site, assuming anyone inside would have been crushed. But Amara knew Taejun. He wasn't anyone. He escaped through here, she said, crouching at the tunnel entrance. He dragged himself out while the building collapsed. The blood loss alone. He survived worse. She ducked into the tunnel before Minji could stop her. The passage was dark, narrow, thick with the smell of sewage and smoke. Amara pulled out her phone, using the flashlight like she had that first night, cutting a path through darkness toward something she shouldn't seek. The blood trail continued. Smeared against walls. Pooled in low spots. Growing fainter as it went. She followed it for what felt like miles, through twists and turns that disoriented her, through intersections where the trail threatened to vanish. Behind her she could hear Minji and several guards trying to keep up. And then the tunnel ended. A rusted grate opened onto a maintenance shaft. Beyond that, an abandoned subway platform, part of a line that had been closed decades ago. The blood trail stopped at the edge of the platform, near a figure slumped against the wall. Taejun. She ran. He didn't respond. His body was crumpled like a discarded puppet, suit destroyed, skin covered in burns and cuts and the kind of wounds that should have killed anyone. His eyes were closed. His chest barely moved. But it moved. He was alive. I need medics. Minji screamed into her phone. Yow. Amara dropped to her knees beside him, hands shaking as they found his face. His skin was cold. Too cold. His pulse when she found it was thready and weak. Taejun. Look at me. Please look at me. Nothing. Don't you dare die on me. Tears streamed down her face, splashing onto his ruined shirt. You promised. You said, see you later. This isn't later. This isn't goodbye. Still nothing. I found the ring, she whispered. I know what you were going to ask. And my answer is yes. Do you hear me? My answer is yes. But you have to wake up. You have to fight. You have to come back to me one more time. His eyes fluttered. Black met brown. Amara. Her name on his lips was barely a breath. I'm here. I'm right here. You found me. Something like a smile crossed his broken face. Again. I'll always find you. His hand moved. Slow, painful, requiring effort that should have been impossible. His fingers touched her cheek. Yes. Yes. She caught his hand, pressing it against her face. 1,000 times yes. Good. His eyes started to close. That's good. No. Stay awake. Taejun, Hyun. But he was already gone. Unconscious, slipping away, hovering on the edge of death with only her voice to anchor him to life. Surgery took 9 hours. 3 teams of doctors. 2 blood transfusions. A collapsed lung, fractured ribs, second-degree burns, and internal bleeding that required 4 separate procedures to repair. Minji paced the waiting room like a caged animal. Amara sat perfectly still. The ring was in her pocket. She touched it every few minutes, feeling its edges, reminding herself why she was here. What she was waiting for. He's survived worse, she said quietly. Minji stopped pacing. Has he? He told me about the surgery after the explosion. His heart stopped twice. He came back. That was different. How? Because he didn't have someone waiting for him then. Minji sank into the chair beside her. He didn't have a reason to fight. Amara looked at her. You think I'm his reason? I think you're the first thing he's wanted to live for in 20 years. Minji's voice was soft. I watched him after our mother died. Watched him turn cold, then hard, then untouchable. He became what our father wanted. A weapon, a tool, an heir. He stopped being human. And now? Tao he laughs. Something like wonder crossed Minji's face. I heard him laugh last week. Actually laugh, not that cruel sound he makes to intimidate people. He was on the phone with you and he laughed like he meant it. Amara's heart clenched. I love him, she said quietly. It was the first time she'd said it out loud. I know. Does that make me crazy? Probably. Minji almost smiled. But crazy seems to be a requirement for surviving this family. The doctor emerged at 3 a.m. His face was exhausted but not grim. Amara stood before he could speak, hands clenched at her sides, heart hammering so hard she could hear it. He'll live. The world started breathing again. He's not out of danger, the doctor continued. The next 48 hours are critical. But his body is fighting. Whatever's keeping him alive. He shook his head. I've never seen anything like it. He should be dead 10 times over. Instead he's stabilizing. Can I see him? He's unconscious. Heavily sedated. I don't care. Can I see him? The doctor hesitated. Looked at Minji. Looked back at Amar. 5 minutes. He looked small in the hospital bed. That was her first thought. Ridiculous because he was 6 feet 2 inches of muscle and menace. But surrounded by machines and tubes and the clinical white of intensive care, Kang Taejun looked almost fragile. Almost human. Amara pulled a chair to his bedside and took his hand. His fingers were cold. 4 lines ran into his wrist, pumping fluids and medication into a body that had been pushed beyond every limit. The dragon tattoo was partially visible beneath his hospital gown, scales dulled by fluorescent light. I should be terrified right now, she said quietly. 3 weeks ago I was a waitress with a leaking ceiling and too much debt. Now I'm engaged to a mafia boss who keeps almost dying. No response. But I'm not terrified. Or I am, but not of you. Not of this life. I'm terrified of losing you. Of finding out what I would become without you. She traced patterns on his palm. You changed me. Or maybe you uncovered what was already there. The part of me that could shoot a man to protect someone she loves. The part that could look at a monster and see a partner. His fingers twitched. Just slightly. Just enough to tell her he was there, somewhere, listening through the haze of sedation. Come back to me, she whispered. Please. She stayed for 5 minutes. Then 10. Then an hour. Minji found her asleep in the chair at dawn, head resting on the edge of his bed, hands still wrapped around his. She draped a blanket over Amara's shoulders and stood guard at the door. The Kang syndicate boss was vulnerable. His fiancé was exposed. But Minji would die before she let anyone touch either of them. He woke on the 3rd day. Amara was reading to him. A book of Nigerian folktales her grandmother used to tell her, translated into words that probably didn't capture the original magic but felt like home anyway. And the tortoise said to the elephant, size is not wisdom, my friend. Sometimes the smallest creature carries the heaviest burden. What burden does the tortoise carry? He dropped the book. His eyes were open, clear, focused, fixed on her face with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. His voice was rough, damaged by tubes and smoke and 3 days of silence, but it was his voice. You're awake. Apparently. You almost died. Apparently. I hate you. His lips curved. Apparently not. She kissed him. It was messy, tears and relief and the awkward angle of hospital equipment between them. But his hand found her hair and he held her there, and for a moment nothing else existed. I found the ring, she said against his lips. I know. You told me. You heard. I heard everything. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You said yes. I did. Did you mean it? She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. I meant every word. Something broke open in his expression. Walls crumbling, defenses falling, the ice finally melting completely. He looked at her like she was the sun after a lifetime of darkness. I love you, he said. First time. She smiled through tears. I love you too. Recovery took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of physical therapy and medication and doctors who clucked disapprovingly at their patient's refusal to rest. Taejun was a terrible patient. Stubborn, impatient, determined to return to full strength before his body was ready. Amar kept him in line. Mostly. If you tear those stitches again, I'm letting the infection take you. You wouldn't. Try me. He sank back against the pillows with a theatrical sigh. You're supposed to be my doting fiancé. I'm your fiancé who doesn't want to be a widow before the wedding. His expression softened. Wedding. Yes. That thing that happens after proposals. Usually involves flowers and cake and people crying. I know what a wedding is. Do you? Because I assumed you'd want some kind of syndicate blood oath ceremony with ritual sacrifice. He stared at her, then burst out laughing. Real laughter. The kind Minji had talked about. It transformed his face, crinkled his eyes, softened his jaw, made him look young and carefree and achingly beautiful. She wanted to hear that sound every day for the rest of her life. I want whatever you want, he said finally. Church, courthouse, beach at sunset. I don't care about the ceremony. I only care about the result. Which is forever. In whatever way you'll have me. Her heart swelled. I want small, she said. Just us and the people we love. Somewhere beautiful. No syndicate politics. No power plays. Just two people choosing each other. That can be arranged. And I want you to promise me something. Anything. She leaned in, hands framing his face. Promise me you'll stop almost dying. I can't keep finding you in parking garages and collapsed buildings. My heart can't take it. He caught her hands, pressing kisses to her palms. I promise to try. Try harder. I promise. His eyes held hers. For you I promise to fight for every breath. To come home every night. To be the man you think I am even when I'm not sure that man exists. He exists. I've seen him. Only you. Then it's a good thing I'm not going anywhere. Jin-soo was captured 3 weeks after Taejun left the hospital. He'd been hiding in Jeju, a coward's paradise, Minji had said with contempt. His remaining allies had scattered. His accounts had been frozen. The man who'd tried to kill the ghost dragon had become a ghost himself. Until the syndicate found him. I want to see him. Taejun looked up from the report he'd been reading. Amara stood in the doorway of his home office. Their home office now in the penthouse overlooking Busan that had become their world. Why? Because he tried to kill the man I love. Because he's the reason I had to learn what it feels like to think you're dead. Because, she hesitated. Because I need to see that this is over. Really over. He studied her for a long moment. It won't be pleasant. I didn't expect it to be. I'm going to kill him, Amara. Fully. Painfully. Without mercy. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. Are you sure you want to witness that? She crossed the room and took his face in her hands. I'm sure I want to witness you getting closure, she said quietly. Whatever form that takes. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise maybe. Or gratitude. You continue to astound me. Good. Keeps things interesting. The warehouse was different from any she'd seen. Clinical. Designed for one specific purpose. Jin-soo was strapped to a chair in the center of the room, bloodied but conscious. His eyes widened when Taejun entered, and widened further when he saw Amara at his side. You brought your whore to watch? Taejun's hand moved faster than Amara could track. Jin-soo's head snapped to the side, blood spraying from his split lip. Speak of her again, Taejun said quietly, and I start with your tongue. Jin-soo spat blood onto the concrete floor. You think killing me changes anything? The syndicate is rotting from within. Your father's legacy is dust. Everything you've built will crumble the moment. My father was a monster who murdered his own wife. Taejun circled the chair slowly, every step deliberate. His legacy deserved to crumble. I'm building something new. Something he never could have imagined. What? A legitimate empire. Jin-soo laughed. You're a killer, Kang Taejun. No different from your father. No different from me. You're wrong. Amara's voice surprised even herself. She stepped forward, ignoring Taejun's protective grab at her elbow. Jin-soo's eyes tracked her with contempt. He's different, she said steadily. Because he's capable of love. Of mercy. Of wanting something beyond power. Can you say the same? Jin-soo's lip curled. You've been brainwashed by a pretty face and a talented tongue, little girl. He's fooled better women than you. No. She crouched until they were eye level. He hasn't fooled me at all. I know exactly what he is. I've seen him order deaths. Seen him fight. Seen the ice in his eyes when he's being the ghost dragon. And I've also seen him cry when he thinks no one's watching. Seen him gentle with children. Seen him nurse injured birds back to health because he can't stand unnecessary suffering. Jin-soo scoffed. I've seen all of him, Amara continued. The monster and the man. And I chose him anyway. Not because I'm blind. Because love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing someone completely and staying anyway. Silence. Taejun's hand found her shoulder, drawing her back. Enough, he said quietly. He doesn't deserve your philosophy. She stood, taking her place at his side. No, she agreed. He doesn't. Jin-soo died at midnight. Amara didn't watch the ending, couldn't despite her earlier bravado. She waited in the car outside, listening to the rain that had started falling, watching droplets trace patterns down the windshield. When Taejun emerged, his face was expressionless. But his hands were clean. He slid into the seat beside her and sat in silence for a long moment. Then his head dropped against her shoulder and he breathed deep, shuddering breaths that spoke of release. It's over, he said. How do you feel? Empty. He laughed softly. I thought I would feel satisfied, triumphant. Instead, I just feel tired. She stroked his hair, damp from the rain. Then rest. With you. Always with me. The wedding was held on a private beach in Jeju. Not the same island where Jin-soo had hidden. Minji had made sure of that. A different coast facing a different ocean, blessed by sunshine that broke through clouds at exactly the right moment. Amara wore white. Not the elaborate Korean hanbok Minji had offered, though she'd considered it. A simple gown instead, elegant, flowing, chosen because it made her feel like herself rather than a character in someone else's story. Taejun wore black. Because of course he did. His dragon tattoo crept above his collar, visible despite the formal suit. She'd asked him to hide it, he'd refused. This is who I am, he'd said. The man you're marrying. All of him. She'd kissed him instead of arguing. The ceremony was simple. Just as she'd wanted. Minji stood as witness. Dr. Chen, unexpectedly emotional, represented the past they'd survived together. A few trusted members of the syndicate, the ones who'd proven their loyalty, watched from a respectful distance. And her grandmother. Amara's grandmother sat in a wheelchair at the front, confused about where she was but clear about one thing. Her granddaughter was getting married and that deserved celebration. The moment that broke Amara completely was when her grandmother grasped Taejun's hand during the vows. You take care of my Amara, she said in Yoruba, apparently unaware he couldn't understand. She's special. She's been through too much. You protect her. Taejun looked at Amara. What did she say? She told you to protect me. He turned to her grandmother, took both her weathered hands in his, and spoke in careful, clearly rehearsed Yoruba. I promise. Always. Amara stared at him. You learned. Basic phrases. He shrugged, trying to look casual and failing completely. Minji helped. I wanted to be able to speak to her. Your grandmother, I mean. Since she's important to you. She was crying before he finished the sentence. I, Kang Taejun, take you Amara Okafor as my wife. His voice was steady, the voice of a man who'd commanded armies, destroyed enemies, rebuilt empires. But his eyes were soft. So soft. I don't have poetry for you, he continued. I don't have pretty words or romantic gestures. What I have is this. I have survived death multiple times. Betrayal. Abandonment. Violence beyond measure. And none of it prepared me for you. Amara's breath caught. You walked into darkness to save a stranger. You saw a monster and chose to stay. You challenged me, questioned me, refused to fear me when everyone else did. You made me laugh. You made me want. You made me human again. His voice dropped. I spent 20 years being a weapon. With you, I'm finally learning to be a man. Tears streamed down her face. So I don't promise perfection. I don't promise safety, not in a world like ours. What I promise is this. Every breath I take will be for you. Every choice I make will consider you. Every enemy who threatens you will answer to me. And every morning for the rest of our lives, I will wake up choosing you. Silence. Even the waves seemed to still. Now it's your turn, he said almost shyly. Amara laughed through tears. I, Amara Okafor, take you Kang Taejun as my husband. She gripped his hands tighter. I came to Korea with nothing except survival instincts and a determination to forget where I came from. I worked jobs that exhausted me. I lived in spaces that embarrassed me. I told myself that existing was enough. He listened with complete attention. Then I found you bleeding in a parking garage and something shifted. I didn't save you because I'm noble. I saved you because I saw my father in you, someone dying alone in the dark, and I couldn't bear to let that happen twice. She paused. But what started as trauma became something else. Something I never expected. What? He breathed. Home. She smiled through tears. You became home. The first real home I've had since Lagos. And I don't care about the danger or the complications or the fact that your world is violent and terrifying. I care about waking up next to you. I care about your rare smiles and your terrible jokes and the way you memorize everything about me like I'm worth studying. His eyes were suspiciously bright. I don't need a castle or a crown. I just need you exactly as you are. Monster and man. Ice and fire. The ghost dragon and the person who laughs at my burned cooking. She raised their joined hands and pressed a kiss to his knuckles. I choose you. Every version of you. For the rest of our lives. The officiant barely got through the final words before Taejun was kissing her. Minji's toast was predictably terrifying. If you hurt her, she said, champagne glass raised toward her brother, I will find you. I will use every resource at my disposal. And I will make the last 3 months look like a vacation. She's supposed to be threatening me, Amara whispered. She is. Taejun looked almost proud. That's her way of saying she approves. Your family is strange. You're part of it now. She couldn't argue with that. The dancing was awkward at first. Taejun moved like a fighter. All controlled grace and economical motion. Amara moved like someone who'd learned to dance in Lagos markets, hips and shoulders leading, rhythm more important than form. They shouldn't have worked together. They were perfect. I never thought I'd have this, he murmured against her hair. Have what? A wedding. A wife. Someone I actually want to spend forever with. He pulled back to look at her. I assumed I'd die young or alone or both. That's what happens to men like me. Men like you. Leaders. Killers. People who make enemies by existing. He shrugged. The syndicate eats its own. I watched it happen to my father. Expected it to happen to me. And now. His gaze swept the beach, the guests, the sunset bleeding gold across the water. Now I have something to live for. Someone to come home to. A future that looks like more than survival. She touched his face. I'm glad I found you in that garage. I'm glad you didn't run. I almost did. I know. He smiled. But you didn't. No. She leaned up to kiss him softly. I didn't. The bridal suite overlooked the ocean. Moonlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, silvering everything it touched. Amara stood at the glass, watching waves crash against distant rocks, feeling the enormity of what she'd done settling into her bones. She was married. To Kong Taejun, the ghost dragon of the Kong Syndicate. Her husband. Arms wrapped around her from behind, warm, strong, familiar now in a way that still surprised her. His chin rested on her shoulder. Having second thoughts? No. She leaned back into him. Just processing. What's to process? You married a man who's been legally dead for 4 months. Perfectly normal. She laughed despite herself. When you put it that way. He turned her to face him. In the moonlight, his features were all shadows and angles, beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. I meant everything I said, he told her quietly. Every word. Every promise. I know. Do you? She took his hand, pressed it against her heart. I know because you're not capable of lying to me. Not anymore. I see through every mask, every wall, every inch of armor you wear for everyone else. She covered his hand with hers. I know the real you. And the real you doesn't make promises he can't keep. Something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability. Wonder. Love. Wife, he said, testing the word like something precious. Pie wife. Husband. She smiled. Pie husband. He kissed her then, slow, thorough, with all the time in the world. The penthouse had changed. Not drastically. Taejun's aesthetic still dominated, all clean lines and expensive taste. But Amara's touches were everywhere now. Plants that climbed toward windows. Photographs from Lagos next to Korean artwork. A reading corner stuffed with pillows and blankets, where she spent rainy afternoons losing herself in stories. Home. Real, permanent, indisputable home. She was reviewing restaurant plans. Her restaurant, the one Taejun had funded and she was building from the ground up. When he, professional,